Hi, everyone. My name is Carla, and I'm your relationship doula, helping women before and after marriage bravely birth peace in the pieces of their lives. I'm just so excited to touch base with you guys and look forward to November. I've recently become certified as a brain health coach. I'm so excited about adding to that information to my coaching clients. Thank you, Carmen, for tuning in. And so I'm so excited about how much I'm learning about the brain and what triggers it, what causes it to create change. So all of that, I'm looking forward to doing a webinar sometime in November. But this month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I just wanted to come and talk about what do you do? Because many times for some of us, when we find out about abuse, we may belong to a religious community. It could be a parish, it could be a church, it could be a synagogue, wherever it is that you may be worshiping if you choose to do that. What happens when the person who is abusing you, be it your parent or someone there in the church or someone in authority, and you speak out? Many times we tend to want to address the leaders in that position, in your church, your rabbi, your bishop, your priest, when something like this comes to light. But I want us to really think about what is the correct procedure for this. Because when that happens, your expectations may not be met. A brave person once shared with me that they'd been abused as a child and never told anyone. The person was a friend of their parent, and so now years has passed, and she's older now, and just out of the blue, someone comes up to her and mentions that this same person has molested them as well. And she was just so surprised and shocked because she had suppressed that for years, because this person is now close friends with her husband. And so she never told her husband or anyone else. So now could you imagine when you're having to now be brave enough to share this with your family members and let them know what's occurred? And so the person who did it, they're prominent in the church, and that happens. And again, this could happen to anyone, but it's even more challenging when that person is in a leadership position. And so their desire was for the person maybe to possibly step down and have the pastor do that. And I threw out there, well, what happens if that doesn't happen? Because again, many times, if this is homegrown, the perpetrator may be good friends with the pastor. And so it's hard for them when you put them in that situation to make a decision. And it shouldn't be their decision. This is a criminal act. When you molest someone, when you abuse someone, there are consequences that needs to be addressed. The person, yes, may need some help, but so many times as the victim, you feel like you need to protect them. You need to protect their reputation or their family. And so many times you're victimized over again because of what happens. And we know what we've seen within the past couple of months happening when someone decides to come forward and say something. You're ridiculed from various places. No one wants to believe you, or somehow it's your fault. Or the other thing is like, why you're saying something after all these years? But just like with this woman, she would have never said anything, but here it is, someone else out of the blue 30 years later comes to her and says this, and she's like, oh my goodness. So again, certain behaviors don't stop just because you've outgrown it or moved on. The perpetrator most likely is continuing in that behavior. And so that's why she's choosing to bring it up now. But you could imagine what the powers that be or the gossip mongers may say. Oh no, we can't believe that. Because keep in mind, when you are abused, you are the one seeing it from your lens. Because if you're the friend of the person, because they have not interacted with you that way, you may find it hard to believe that they're capable of that behavior. I understand that. All of us would like to think we somehow have 20/20 visions, and we can perceive or see someone who is a perpetrator or possible perpetrator. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. That person could be living with you in your house. And so I remember meeting this wonderful woman at the airplane. We were seatmates coming back from a trip. I was coming back from Boston. And she shared her story. She heard me doing a post on Facebook to my audience saying I was a relationship doula. And so she said, you know, she's a real doula in life. So we started having a wonderful conversation, and we just talked about life and the issues. And she shared a part of her story which required bravery on her part. She shared how she had to turn in her own son. Her son molested his sister, her daughter. And she said that was the hardest thing for her to do once her daughter told her what was happening. Because she actually got hate from her family saying, how can you do that? How can you turn in your own son? But she said she came from a family of abuse. And so often we just want to hide it. We want to say, you know what? If I speak to them, they won't do it again. But they need help. You're not helping them by covering it under the rug. So she did a brave thing, but she did not get a standing ovation. She got a lot of flack from her family, some of them who still aren't speaking to her till this day because of that. So she does go and see her son in the facility, but he needed to be held accountable for his actions. And people who molest and abuse, you have to be accountable for your actions, whether it happened yesterday, today, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Certain things will just have to be accountable. You have to be accountable for. Because the other thing that I want to share when I talk about domestic violence and being aware of it is that we have to stop sheltering our children, because we put them in a very dangerous situation when we don't give them the tools that they need. Now, I'm not saying, some of you are like, well, oh, you don't have to say everything to your children. I'm not saying that you do that. I am saying that you do things age appropriate. Could you imagine if you sheltered your child and waited till they were 18 years old to teach them 1 + 1 = 2? That sounds kind of stupid, doesn't it? No, because they're able to learn 1 + 1 = 2. It's more appropriate for them to learn it in first grade. They may even learn it in kindergarten. I don't know when I learned 1 + 1 = 2. But there's an appropriate time and a context in which you give your children information so they can build on it. And that includes when your children are smaller. No, they don't have to go give everybody a hug. They don't have to give uncle, auntie, cousin, whoever. That's one of the things where we can start giving our children those tools when they're younger and give them permission over their body. They know whether or not they want to be touched or hugged. So I dislike it. And there are a few things I dislike, but I dislike when people say, oh, give her a hug. I'm like, no, don't do that to your children. You now make them question their own initiative or that little prickly feeling they may get when someone is giving them a hug that's inappropriate. They need to be able to say, no, I don't want to give that person a hug. No, I don't want to give them a kiss. No, they have that right without being reprimanded. And so that's what I mean when I say to start allowing our children to get those natural radars up, because oftentimes what we do when we force them to do that, they now don't listen to that intuition that tells them later on, this is a creepy old man, this is a creepy old lady, let me keep my distance, let me stay a little bit further back from those grabbing hands that want to grab and touch on anything, or be able to say, hey, stop touching me like that, without the parent thinking that they're rude or getting them in trouble or smacking them because they did that. So that's what I mean when saying allowing your children to get those natural feelers in. Because even in the animal kingdom, the birds and animals let their children learn when there's danger. Back in the day when my kids were younger, there was this one little song that called Stranger Danger. And so it's not necessarily saying stranger danger, but it talked about take 3 steps back, and run like the wind. But being able to have control over their own person and their own body so that we can prevent abuse. I believe in prevention, but I know many times things have already occurred. It's out of our control, but let's give our children those tools to say no, that they don't want to be hugged, that they don't want to be touched. It is their body. Even for my grandbaby, sometimes she'll come up and I said, you know what? I don't want to be touched right now. Teaching her that she has control over her body as well too, to say, no, I don't want to be held right now. I don't want to give you a good night kiss. Fine. You know, some nights she wants to give me a good night kiss. Sometimes she doesn't. Let them have that control over their lives. Because domestic violence affects so many of us. And I hate it when only until it happens to you do you want to become a proponent or an advocate for something now. Don't wait for that to happen to you or any of the babies or little ones in your family. Be proactive in preventing domestic violence. I love how Serena's using her voice as a platform against domestic abuse. The one that I had today talk about love. Love is kind, love is not envy. So I challenge you women out there and men, reassess your definition of love. Because if they're hitting you, if they're belittling you, if they're withholding affection from you, that is not love. It's not love. It's not love. Not love. It's a form of abuse that's being played on you to start questioning yourself, thinking you're less than, thinking you're crazy. And believe it or not, it is okay to be alone and not in an abusive situation. And so that's what I wanted to share with you guys today on our Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so my name is Carla. I'm your relationship doula, helping women before and after marriage bravely birth peace in the pieces of their lives. Be safe, prevent, speak out, reach for help. You guys have a good one.